Dear students of third secondary, welcome to our English program. Before we get started, I would like to welcome my dear colleague, Mrs. Caroline. Hello, Mrs. Caroline.
Hi, Ms. Germaine. Today we are going to have another chapter from The Prisoner of Zenda. We're going to work on chapter 4. We're going to have a summary, we're going to have questions, quotations, and more of work. Please be ready, get your paper, get started, and let's have chapter 4. The Prisoner of Zenda, Chapter 4. Summary of Chapter 4.
When Colonel Sapt discovered that the king had been kidnapped from the hunting lodge and his servant Joseph had been killed, he asked Rudolf Rassendyll to continue pretending to be the king so as not to give Michael the chance to take the crown.
Rudolf Rassendyll thought that Sapt's plan was too dangerous because people might realize that he was not the real king.
Colonel Sapt assured Rudolf Rassendyll that Duke Michael would not say anything because, if he did, people would ask him where the real king was.
Rudolf Rassendyll still had doubts, as Princess Flavia thought that the king had changed.
Sapt agreed that the plan was a risk, but he told Rudolf Rassendyll that if there was not a king in Stralsund, the city would belong to Michael within 24 hours. Even if the real king were dead, Rudolf Rassendyll would stay king.
While Sapt and Rudolf Rassendyll were getting ready to leave the hunting lodge, Michael's men arrived.
They had brought spades with them. They came to bury Joseph's body in order to hide their evil work.
Sapt and Rudolf Rassendyll fought against Michael's men.
Rudolf Rassendyll knocked one man off his horse, then hit another man with his sword.
Michael's men wanted to trap Rudolf Rassendyll, but he was able to escape through a gap between the men.
One of Michael's men shot Rudolf Rassendyll, and he felt a terrible pain in his finger.
Sapt put a bandage on Rudolf Rassendyll's finger. They arrived at a farm. The farmer was very kind.
He gave them some food and allowed them to rest. Rudolf Rassendyll covered his face so as not to be recognized by anyone.
He told the farmer that he had a bad tooth. Then they reached Stralsund.
At the palace, one of Sapt's servants was waiting for them. His name was Freiler.
Sapt told him that the king caught his finger in a door. Sapt told Freiler not to tell anyone about what he had seen.
When Fritz saw Rudolf Rassendyll, he thought he was the king, so he jumped up and bowed in front of him.
The princess sent her servant to find out how the king was feeling after the coronation.
Rudolf Rassendyll sent his thanks to the princess.
Sapt told Rudolf Rassendyll all about the king's duties.
Sapt told Rudolf Rassendyll what he ought to do and what he ought not to do, and also what he should say to the many important people he had to meet during the day.
Rudolf Rassendyll was very worried when he met the French ambassador, because he asked him a question that he could not answer.
Rudolf Rassendyll told everyone that he could not write because of his finger. So many important documents were not completed.
Fritz believed that they should plan how to attack Michael. Sap believed that Michael would not kill the king because he knew that if he killed him, Rudolf Rassendyll would stay as king instead.
Michael's 6 men are special soldiers who Michael kept in his house all times.
They were completely loyal to him.
3 of them were from Ruritania and the others were foreigners.
Half of them were in Stralsund with the Duke, and the other half were at the castle of Zenda guarding the king who was held prisoner there.
The king Rudolf Rassendyll wanted to make himself popular.
He wanted to stop the poor people of Stralsund from thinking badly about him.
He didn't want them to side with Michael if there was a fight.
Rudolf Rassendyll had a plan. He rode his horse through the park with Fritz and waved to everyone who bowed to him.
He wanted the people to know that he cared about them.
He stopped to buy flowers from a poor young girl with a gold coin.
This attracted the attention of a lot of people.
Hundreds of people followed Rudolf Rassendyll to the palace of Princess Flavia, who was very popular with the people of Ruritania.
Rudolf Rassendyll decided to be careful when he talked to the princess.
He did not want to say too much to her, or she would realize he was not the real king.
Flavia told the king Rudolf Rassendyll that he had completely changed since he became king.
Rudolf Rassendyll told Flavia that he wanted Duke Michael to be near him because he was his half-brother.
Flavia looked at him strangely because she knew that the king and Michael were not good friends, as Michael wanted to take the crown.
Rudolf Rassendyll didn't realize that Michael was waiting outside, as he couldn't enter without the king's permission.
Rudolf Rassendyll apologized to Michael and told him he didn't know he was waiting.
Rudolf Rassendyll said that his hand was hurt because an animal bit him.
He meant Michael. Rudolf Rassendyll thanked Michael for the splendid coronation.
He also thanked him for the great time he had had at the hunting lodge. When Michael heard that, he jumped to his feet and walked angrily to the door.
Michael introduced 3 of his 6 men to Rudolf Rassendyll and told him that they were loyal to the king.
One of the 3 men smiled when Rudolf Rassendyll spoke to him in English.
Rudolf Rassendyll was sure that all the 6 men knew that he was not the real king. Okay, before we go to the questions, can we please, Miss Caroline, have a brief again about the main points that we discussed? بداية الشابتر بيبتدي ببرنسس فلافيا وازاي هي شافت ان الكينج اتغير. الخطة بتمشي زي ما احنا اتفقنا قبل كده انه سابت هياخد رودولف عشان يرجعوا الهانتينج لودج ويفري الكينج، هيحرروا الكينج، وبعديها المفروض ان رودولف هيسيب البلد ويمشي. لكن هم راحوا وحصل اشتباك بين مايكل وبين سابت ورودولف رازنديل، وكانت النتيجة ان رودولف اتعور في صباعه.
بعد كده وهم راجعين في الطريق ابتدوا يتكلموا انه ممكن مايكل يقول للناس انه ده مش الكينج، وده كانت الخوف او التخوف من رودولف رازندايل انه الخطة الموضوعة خطر جدا وخطر عليه وخطر على الكينج. ولكن سبت قال له ما تقلقش، لانه نو واي هو ممكن يجيب اي سيره عن الموضوع ده ولا يقول انه الكينج اللي موجود ده مش هو الكينج الحقيقي، لانه لو اتقال حاجه زي كده من الطبيعي انه يطلب منه طيب فين الكينج الحقيقي او فين الملك بتاعنا، ازاي في شخص تاني موجود دلوقتي. وده اللي خلى رودولف رازنديل يحس بشيء من الامان، ولو انه كان ستيل عنده شيء من التخوف من برنسس فليفيا وقربها منه، لانه كان عارف انه برنسس فليفيا كانت قادره تكتشف بسرعه شويه انه الملك متغير وانه سيريس اكتر وانه مش نفس الشخص اللي كان معاها قبل كده. وفعلا ابتدى رودولف رازندايل يحاول يقرب للناس، لانه كان جزء مهم جدا بالنسبه له الطبقه الفقيره اللي في البلد اللي كانت متضرره من وجود الملك رودولف ألفبرغ، وابتدى يحاول يشوف ايه الوسيله اللي يقدر بيها يوصل ويتقرب للناس. فقرر انه ينزل في الشوارع بتاعتهم، وحتى لقى في بائعة ورد قرر انه يشتري ورد منها ويديها جولد كوين وعلشان يحسسها ان هو منها، وده اللي خلاه يبقى قريب منهم جدا، واللي خلى رودولف يقنع الناس ان هو بيثق فيهم وان هو قريب منهم وواحد منهم ومش الصورة اللي كانت واخدينها عنه قبل كده. جيرمان I think you can continue.
اوكي.
Yes.
بنتنقل الاحداث للقصر بتاع الملك، وبنشوف ان رودولف رازنديل كان عنده مقابلات كتيره مع ناس مهمين، لكن سابت وفريتز كانوا بيقولوا له ايه المفروض ايه اللي بيتقال وايه اللي ما بيتقالش. وطبعا الاصابه اللي جات له في صباعه دي انقذته من موقف محرج، لان كان في اوراق كتير كان مطلوب ان هو يمضيها، لكن لو كان مضاها كان بسهوله جدا الناس هتكتشف انه مش هي دي الامضه الحقيقيه للملك. بعد فتره قصيره جدا بيزوروا مايكل بالسيكس مان بتوعه، وهم دول اخطر 6 مان في الستوري، اللي هم السولجرز اللي بيحاوطوا مايكل طول الوقت، وهم دول اللي بينفذوا كل التعليمات بتاعته. وابتدى يعرفهم عليه قال لهم مايكل ده الكينج بتاعنا، رحبوا بيه. لكن طبعا كلهم كانوا متأكدين ان مش هو ده الريل كينج. مايكل طبعا كان جريء جدا في ان هو يقابل رودولف رازنديل، وسأله بتهكم ايه ده وصباعك ليه متعور او ايه الإصابة اللي في ايدك. فطبعا رد عليه رد قوي جدا وقال له اصل في حيوان عضني. الرجالة بتوع مايكل ال6 كانوا مقسومين، كان في منهم 3 من موريتانيا وفي 3 أجانب من جنسيات مختلفة، والثلاثة دول كان في 3 بيرافقوا مايكل في المدينة، أما ال3 التانيين كانوا موجودين في زندا بيحرسوا الملك.
And now I think we can continue our questions. Let's now be ready for a good number of questions. Not only questions, but quotations. Be ready with a paper and pen and start noting down. First, answer the following questions.
Why did Colonel Sapt want Rudolf Rassendyll to return to the capital and continue pretending to be the king?
If Rudolf Rassendyll didn't continue pretending to be the king, Duke Michael would take the crown.
Although Duke Michael and his men knew that Rudolf Rassendyll wasn't the real king, they couldn't say anything about this. Explain.
If they told people that Rudolf Rassendyll wasn't the real king, people would ask them where the real king was, and they would appear guilty.
Why did Rudolf Rassendyll think that Sapt's second plan was too dangerous?
Sapt suggested that Rudolf Rassendyll return to the capital and continue pretending to be the king. Rudolf Rassendyll thought it was too dangerous, as the Duke and his men knew that he wasn't the real king.
Where was King Rudolf Elfberg?
He was held prisoner by Duke Michael at the castle of Zenda.
According to Sapt, When would Rudolf Fresendil stay king for life?
He would stay king for life if the real king, Rudolf Elfberg, was killed.
What kind of doubts did Rudolf Fresendil have about pretending to be the king?
He had doubts that someone would realize that he wasn't the real king, and in that case, his life would be in danger.
Why did Michael's men go back to the hunting lodge carrying spades?
They went back to bury Joseph's body so as to hide their evil work.
What was the reaction of Duke Michael's men when Sapt and Rudolf Fresendil attacked them at the hunting lodge?
They looked shocked to see them, and they weren't prepared.
What did Rudolf Fresendil do during the fight against Michael's men at the hunting lodge?
He knocked one man off his horse, then hit another big man with his sword.
How did Rudolf Fresendil escape when Michael's men were about to trap him?
Rudolf Fresendil saw a gap between the men. He turned his horse and quickly rode through the gap towards the forest.
How was Rudolf Fresendil injured in the fight against Michael's men?
One of Michael's men shot him, and he felt a terrible pain in his finger.
Did Michael's men see who Rudolf Fresendil was? How do you know?
Yes, one of the men said, "It's the king," before Rudolf Fresendil pushed him off his horse.
What did Sapt do to help Rudolf Fresendil, whose finger hurt badly?
Sapt put a bandage on Rudolf Fresendil's finger.
What did Sapt plan to do if the real king was dead?
His plan was that Rudolf Fresendil would stay king.
What did Rudolf Fresendil mean that some of Michael's evil men should join Joseph?
He meant that they should be killed like Joseph.
Why did Fresendil use a new servant who had never met the real king?
He didn't want anyone to know that Rudolf Fresendil wasn't the real king.
What justification did Sapt give for Rudolf Fresendil's injury?
Sapt said that Rudolf Fresendil had caught his finger in a door.
Why did Princess Flavia send her servant to the royal palace?
She did so to find out how the king was feeling after the coronation.
According to Rudolf Fresendil, what is a pretend king's life like?
It's harder than a real king's life.
How did Rudolf Fresendil's injured finger affect his duties as a king?
He couldn't write, so many important documents were not completed.
Why did Rudolf Fresendil feel worried when he met the French ambassador?
He felt worried because the French ambassador asked him a question that he couldn't answer.
Why did Sapt think that Duke Michael wouldn't kill the king?
Sapt thought so because the Duke knew that if he killed the king, Rudolf Fresendil would stay as king instead.
What do you know about the 6 men?
They were 6 special soldiers who Michael kept in his house at all times. They were completely loyal to him. 3 of them were from Mauritania and 3 were foreigners.
Rudolf Fresendil decided to keep some of his plans secret from Sapt and Fritz. What were those plans?
He wanted to make himself popular. He wanted to stop the poorer people from thinking badly about him.
What did Rudolf Rassendyll do on his way to visit Princess Flavia?
He bought flowers from a poor young girl. This attracted a lot of interest, and soon hundreds of people followed him.
How did Rudolf Rassendyll plan to make use of Princess Flavia's popularity?
He went to see Princess Flavia. The poor people seemed very pleased that he had visited the princess.
Why couldn't Michael come into the guest room when the king was there?
He couldn't come to the guest room because no one could enter without the king's permission.
What did Rudolf Rassendyll tell Michael about the cause of the injury in his hand?
Rudolf Rassendyll said that an animal bit him.
Why did Rudolf Rassendyll say that made Duke Michael jump to his feet and walk angrily towards the door?
Michael did this when Rudolf Rassendyll thanked him for the great coronation and for the great time he had had at the hunting lodge.
Read the quotations and answer the questions.
Quotation 1. Listen. If you're a man, you can save the king. Go back and pretend to be him. Who said this to whom?
Sapt said this to Rudolf Rassendyll.
Where was this said?
This was said at the hunting lodge.
What would happen if that person refused to replace the king?
Duke Michael would take the crown and would kill the king or put him in prison.
Quotation 2. But the Duke knows where the real king is, and all his men know. Who said this, and to whom?
Rudolf Rassendyll said this to Colonel Sapt.
Where was this said?
This was said at the hunting lodge.
Why couldn't the Duke do anything, although he knew Rudolf Rassendyll wasn't the real king?
He couldn't do anything because people would ask him about the real king.
Quotation 3. Of course it's a risk, but we must have a king in Stralsund. Who said this, and to whom?
Sapt said this to Rudolf Rassendyll.
What did the speaker mean by "it's a risk"?
He meant that someone might realize that Rudolf Rassendyll wasn't the real king, and his life could be in danger.
Why must he have a king in Stralsund?
The real king was held prisoner, and if there were no king in Stralsund, Duke Michael could take the crown.
Quotation 4. If the real king is already dead, then you shall stay king. Who said this, and to whom?
Sapt said this to Rudolf Rassendyll.
Where was this said?
It was said at the hunting lodge.
Was the real king dead or alive?
He was still alive.
Quotation 5. They would know that you'd stay king if they killed him. Who said this, and to whom?
Sapt said this to Rudolf Rassendyll.
Who did the speaker mean by they, and who was meant by him?
He meant Duke Michael and his men. Him referred to the real king.
Where was the King Rudolf Elfberg at that time?
He was held prisoner at the castle of Zenda.
Quotation 6. My king, you're safe. I'm so pleased. Who said this, and to whom?
Fritz said this to Rudolf Rassendyll.
When was this said?
This was said when Rudolph Resendale and Sapt came back from the hunting lodge.
The speaker mistook the addressed person for someone else. Explain.
Fritz mistook Rudolph Resendale for the king because Rudolph Resendale looked exactly like the king.
Quotation 7. The king has had a good long sleep. Who said this and to whom?
Sapt said this to Princess Flavia's servant.
Where and when was this said?
This was said at the royal palace when Princess Flavia sent her servant to find out how the king was feeling after the coronation.
Did the king have a really good long sleep?
No, he didn't. Rudolph Resendale and Sapt had just come back from the hunting lodge.
Quotation 8. But Duke Michael is holding him prisoner. Who said this and to whom?
Rudolph Resendale said this to Fritz.
When was this said?
This was said when Fritz asked if the king was dead.
Why was the king held prisoner by Duke Michael?
He was held prisoner because Duke Michael wanted to take the crown.
Quotation 9. Rest! No! We mustn't waste any time. Shouldn't we plan to attack Michael? Who said this and to whom?
Fritz said this to Rudolph Resendale and Sapt.
Who wanted to rest and why?
Rudolph Resendale wanted to rest because he had a long tiring day and he wasn't used to hard work. Dear students, hope you have enjoyed today's episode and you knew all the definitions and the grammar lesson.
My dear students, we're happy to be with you for today. We have enjoyed our time with you and we hope that you have also benefited from single thing that we made. Please be ready for next episode next week, waiting for you. Thank you and goodbye.
Welcome to you again, dear students, and today in the chapter 3, which is sexual reproduction in the living organism, starting with the first episode, how can we differentiate between the different types of sexual reproduction in the living organism. Let's start our episode today. Sexual reproduction. In this lesson, we need to learn more about sexual reproduction and how does it happen and how many number of individuals which is need. Well, actually, sexual reproduction, it needs two individuals, male and female. And the last time we studied asexual reproduction and we said it needs one individual. It may be male only or female, okay? While here we need what? We need male gamete, which contains half of genetic material, we call it N, and fuses with the female gamete, which also contains the half of genetic material. And by a process which is called fertilization, it gives us what? The zygote. The zygote is what? The fusion of male gamete with the female gamete, okay? So both of them together give us what? They give us the final product, which is diploid or 2N. the same number of chromosomes in the parent cell. I mean, in each parent cell, male and female. Well, after that, it depends on meiosis or mitosis. It depends sure on meiosis or meiotic division to produce what? Haploid gamete. We call the mitotic division, we call it what? The reduction